Alright, after 7 years of editing exclusively in Capture One, I am finally switching back to Lightroom Classic. And honestly, I didn't think this day would ever come. Before you say it, this is not a clickbait announcement. I'm actually switching back to Lightroom and I've been wrestling with the idea, the pros and the cons for over a year now. I'm sure if you shoot wildlife, travel or landscape photography like I do, you will probably resonate with the same reasons why I am taking this decision. If you're new to the channel, my name is Paolo Sartori. I'm a professional wildlife and nature photographer from Italy. On this channel, I'm sharing tips and tricks and behind the scenes of my work, so make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Let's rewind a bit. Why did I move to Capture One originally? Well, back in 2017, Lightroom felt like kinda old and it was ages since the last major update. While moving to Capture One really took my photography to the next level. Like the RAWs were displayed much better from the beginning, and so the starting point was already better than what Lightroom provided at that point. The color editor was another super important thing that brought me to leave Lightroom in favor of Capture One. Back then, Lightroom was not really precise. It didn't allow such fine tuning of the colors, while Capture One provided incredible tools. Third, it was local adjustments that were used like layers. It was kind of having Photoshop merged into Capture One at the time. It felt very, very powerful. And the last thing was the ability to use both catalog and sessions, and that for my type of workflow was making things way, way easier. So after a bit of trial and error, also back then, I was not really sure at the beginning. I went full in with Capture One, built my workflow around it. I suggested it to other photographers and it worked for quite a few years, but now, 7 years later, maybe it's not the same. Over the past few years, a lot of incredible features were added into Lightroom, and I feel like it's time to review this decision, and I finally committed to go back to the Adobe software. So the main reason why I'm switching back is the new AI denoise function that was implemented into Lightroom. Shooting wildlife, I very often have to rely on super high ISO values because there is this fast motion in very low light situations. And I always have this need of cleaning up my files quite dramatically sometimes before processing them. For many years now, I've been relying on third-party plugins that work well with both Lightroom or Capture One. So it didn't matter if I was on Lightroom or Capture One, I always have to send this file to the third-party plugin, clean it up in that software, then render it usually in a TIFF or a DNG file, send it back to Lightroom or to Capture One and proceed with my editing. Now this function is being added directly into Lightroom, and this is making my life much easier and my workflow much faster. This is probably the single biggest reason why I'm switching back. The second reason is the new masking and local adjustments functionalities that has been implemented in Lightroom. Again, by using AI-based technology in Lightroom now is super easy to instantly select the subject or the background or the sky, and not only it's fast to do on one photo, but I can also copy paste this same adjustment to a whole bunch of photos and the mask will be recalculated based on every single frame. For example, if I select the subject and I add some contrast on the subject, I copy paste this setting and the mask will be adjusted in every photo based on the new position of the subject. There is something similar in Capture One, but the AI auto masking is not working that well. I always have to go and manually fine tune the mask. And this means that if I copy paste the setting to a whole bunch of photos, I will have then to fine-tune every single one of these photos to get the perfect layer. Another reason also related to local adjustments is the ability to intersect locals to create a single mask. For example, I can select the subject using the AI tool, and then I can add or subtract a gradient, or I can create a gradient and subtract the subject. Again, this is huge. It opens up to an incredible amount of new possibilities, and there is nothing similar in Capture One. It would take an incredible amount of time to try to intersect a gradient and subtract a subject. Is something is just impossible to be done right now. Lastly, and this kind of surprised me, I found that I just enjoy using Lightroom more. Capture One is incredibly precise, but over time it feels almost too clinical and technical, while Lightroom sliders tend to respond better to what I want to do. It feels kind of more intuitive, if I can say something like that. So it takes me just less steps to get where I want compared to Capture One. Now let's see the cons and the things that I will still miss from Capture One. But before that, if you want to take your wildlife photography further, don't forget to download my free ebook where I discuss everything that is related to wildlife photography, from camera settings, gear choices, in the field tips, composition, and also post-processing. To download, just check out the link down in the description. Capture One is still an incredible piece of software, and it's also been improved a lot over the years. It also features AI masking tools that are very good. I think it works better if you are into fashion, portraits, and commercial photography. In those fields, I find that it works very well. The AI masking works incredibly well for people, but not that much for wildlife or for landscapes. There are still some things that I will miss from Capture One. The number one being the session workflow. In fact, something that I'm still trying to solve is my new workflow that I will have to adopt with Lightroom, because it always feels kind of messy having to move every file from within the app, because otherwise the syncing will go crazy and the software will not know where the files are, and so this is so much easier with Capture One, where I can create a session for every project where I have separate folders with my captures, my selects, and my output. And after I come back from a trip or after I'm done with a photo shoot, I can include what I did in this session into a bigger catalog, so I can scroll and see all of my complete collection of the year, but still have a clear folder structure that stays consistent through every project. Second, I will miss the full layer local adjustment. When you apply a local adjustment in Capture One, it will treat it as a full layer where you have complete control of any type of settings you want over that area of the image. With Lightroom, this is not really the same. On a local adjustment, you only have a limited number of options that you can tweak. Not super important, but something that sometimes it can make a bit of a difference. And lastly, the color editor. Now Lightroom implemented something very similar, but I still feel that Capture One has a bit of an edge in the fine-tuning of the colors, but I might be wrong. I will let you know after a few months of using Lightroom. Here's the bottom line. This switch is not about brand loyalty or wanting to be back with Adobe. It's just about choosing the right tools for my work now in 2025. For me, shooting wildlife means a lot of files, editing big batches of photos sometimes, and having to deal constantly with high ISO and very noisy images. So these new features are gonna make my workflow much easier. If you're more into portraiture and commercial stuff, Capture One might still be the best choice. Let me know down below in the comments if you are on the Lightroom or on the Capture One team. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more of this content.